Hi, everyone. This is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and I am with you today so we can learn about some past life information. Past lives is something that some people believe in, some people don't. I feel like it's something that a lot of people are interested in and may have other questions or requires more information. But a lot of people have this underlying feeling that they had a previous life, or they'll have dreams that just don't quite make sense, or they'll have like deja vu about a place that they've never been before. So that's what we're kind of talking about today. So um, I would tell you kind of my past life information started as a young child. I would have dreams about different areas of the world and different areas of the country. And I didn't think much about it and I didn't understand what was going on or what the information was that was coming through. I just had like these great stories in my head that were coming through talking about past lives or talking about things, and it was just kind of like a great story. I didn't realize it was me in the story until I was much older. So I would just have these great stories about, you know, playing near a volcano in Hawaii or playing in South Africa with other children, going on long walks with our moms or something. It was just like all these like bits and pieces, but I never put it all together as a child. um, the first time that I actually had like, wow, this could be a past life um, something, or it didn't make sense, and it really was coming up really heavy for me. I was in fifth grade. I was in class, and I was sitting for some reason sitting in the very front row, and the teacher came in and said, "Open up your book to page blah blah blah," and um, it was a new chapter, and it was about the Mayan culture, and there was like a huge pyramid, and kind of like this artist rendition of what everything was going on. People walking around with baskets and baskets on their head and their clothing, that sort of thing. And I just remember going, "Oh my gosh, I want to go there," and I couldn't understand why, and I didn't understand the reasoning behind it. I just didn't get it. I totally didn't get it at all. So for me, past it was just overwhelming. It was just this feeling of I want to go there, or I belong there, or I want to be there, but I didn't understand how or why or anything else. It was just like all of a sudden I want to go there. I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of what's going on there. And so that's when um I started thinking there was something different about me. I already kind of knew I was different because the way I thought about other people or different things, but it was one of those, that was a time where I was like, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong place. Um, there can be, so one of the things that is also kind of interesting, and it's probably because I connected to this as such a small child, when I meet someone, I not only see the person, I see their angels and guides surrounding them. I see the ghosts that loved ones that have passed around them. And then I see their angels, guardian angels, and all that kind of, all of that, all of that energy here close to them. And then further out, I will see connections to past lives. To me, it's one of those, it's something that is part of who they are or what they come through with. And I will tell you that some strings are teeny tiny, and it's just like, just barely getting any information from that lifetime. And then other ones are huge. Some of them will be like toxic energy or negative energy that comes through. And we're going to talk about all of that this week. So we're going to clear the energy real quick with my bells. So, so let's see. I guess my question for you is, have you ever thought you had a past life? Oh, past lives. You can have a feeling of deja vu when you go to a place, or you have a feeling that you know a place or a person that you've never met before. Hi, Miss Courtney. I got lots of people jumping on. It's kind of cool. I have like this instant connection. A client saying that they married their soulmate from a previous life, a past life, and they will come through with like, wow, we're, so in sync. We always know what where the other person is thinking, that sort of thing. And that's great. Not everybody gets that connection, but some people do. And so it's something to be aware of. Um, um, do you ever feel like, sorry, my throat is hard. Um, Connection. There will be people that will see something on TV or a program on, um, like, say, Greece, for instance, and they'll be like, wow, I just want to go to Greece. And then when they get there, it's one of those, they'll feel almost drawn to certain areas of Greece. It's not just like the public areas, or they'll feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I used to live here. I had a client several years ago who was going to Machu Picchu, and he was asking me if he was going to have any issues there, and I said no. Yet let me explain to you that one of the things that you should know is that you had a past life there, and at some point on your trip you will feel that you've kind of walked into your own energy, or you'll feel different, or you'll feel energetically in a different way. And I told him none of it's bad, just be aware that it's a past life, and you can push off that energy that way of just going, realizing like, okay, that's a past life, I'm not concerned about it or whatever else. But I would also say, letting yourself know that it's okay to do that and check out the energy. He had an amazing time, and he did find the spot where I was talking about, and he could just feel the difference there. And it's one of those, it's just kind of a different feeling than you get. It's kind of like a deja vu in like one spot, like I've been in this spot before. um, there are skepticals, people that are skeptical about past lives, and that's okay. To me, it's one of those, you believe or you don't believe. That's your choice, your decision. It's all about um, your energy that you bring forward. And some people just don't want to believe or don't believe, and that's okay. I'm not trying to say like you have to believe I do. I'm doing this series this week, starting at noon, all week, and just talking about some of the experiences that I've had. I will talk to y'all, some of y'all, about some experiences you had, and kind of one of the things I'm going to start, hopefully this today, is kind of some ways to know that if you've had past lives. Like, how do you know I have had past lives? We're going to go over quickly. We're going to talk about some of the energy and some of the fears that you can bring through from past lives. That's a really important thing too, that you can bring through that energy from past lives that can be overwhelming, and how to work through some of that stuff. So we're talking about that. I will also tell you that one of the things that people will ask about is birthmarks. Some of your birthmarks are injuries or problems that you've had in previous um, past lives. So it's one of those, people will say like, I have, had a dream. I think so. Someone was saying that they had, they felt like they had been stabbed through the heart, um, in one of the witch trials, and they said they had a scar in the front and the back because it went through and through. So it's one of those, that's something that can come through for each person, and each person differently, and how it affects you is completely different from everybody else. So um, let's see, your personality changes depending on how what you've lived through, but your soul is the same, and that's what we're talking about. Not necessarily this body, this meat suit that I put on for this lifetime, but this is the soul inside, moving from life to life, not necessarily everything else. So it's just, a lot of people will feel connections in different ways. And I will say most of the time, people have had about 50-50 lives, about 50% male, 50% female, more or less. There are a few people that choose to do that differently, that don't do it the 50-50. It's just part of it. Um, One of the things that I tell my clients when we do a past life regression, once you learn how to do it, it's really phenomenal. It's fun to do it. It's just not something that you want to do every day. It's just not an everyday thing that you want to do, because basically it's kind of like driving down the road, looking in your current life, but you're driving looking at the past. So it's neat to do it from time to time, to look in the rearview mirror and see what's going on, and see where that energy is coming in at. Yet at the same time, you don't want to drive going backwards. So let's get into a couple of signs that your soul has reincarnated. I will tell you, one of them is you will have reoccurring dreams that are reflections or unconscious mind or repetitive dreams. So it's one of those, it's something about signifying like a trauma. I've had clients that will come in and will tell me that they have had what was the other one I had not too long ago, is I was talking to a client and she was talking about her husband, and this is like her second or third husband. I can't remember which one it was. Um, but she was telling me that this husband, every time he leaves, she's always afraid he's not coming home for some whatever reason. And they're both retired, so they kind of do a lot of things together. But when he goes like, "Hey, I'm going to go meet the guys for a beer or whatever else," she's not concerned he's going to cheat on her. It's not that, but she's concerned he's not going to come back. And I said, "Oh, that comes in from a past life." And she goes, "I've never had that with any other person she'd been with." And it was this reoccurring, he's going to leave. Well, and I said, because in a past life, y'all were married, y'all were together, y'all had a great life, and he took off to go work somewhere at a distance and he never came home, and you never knew what happened to him. You never knew, did he just find someone else, did he pass away, did someone hurt him? We don't know. He just didn't ever come back, and that was her fear of that. So those can usually come in from past lives. You can also bring, and that's a trauma or fear that you can bring in from past lives. And this processing of unfinished business can come in with repetitive dreams that potentially give you some aspects of your past life, but not 100% telling you what you were, or where it is, or anything else. Um, Out of place memories, memories that don't make sense in this world. Like if you've never broken your leg, but you have a dream that you have, it's kind of like that doesn't make sense. Or what was one I had not too long ago? Probably about 6 months ago, I had a client that was terrified of falling into a hole and not being able to get out and being terrified of this. And her husband wanted to go into caves, and she said it just drives her crazy. She can't do it. And it was because it was a memory coming back from a past life where she fell into a hole, and then she eventually got out, but it seemed like forever that she was there. So, um, also, you may have strong intuition. A lot of times, what you'll hear is people say that people that are clairsensitives are people that had a lot of past lives. That's not necessarily true. You can be clairsensitive and not have a lot of past lives, but it just depends. We will be talking about how many past lives people have had, and maybe even do at the end of the week some readings into that. Let's see, you have a strong intuition, the ability to balance the conscious and unconscious mind into a deeper um, consciousness, prime, almost primal wisdom that other people aren't able to connect into. And it's almost like a soulful connection. I will tell you that a lot of people will have a lot of deja vu, like I did, or you'll have deja vu of areas, lifetimes. You'll see a movie and you'll just feel really connected to that. So there's a couple of different deja vus. I didn't know this until I started researching this for you guys. So deja vu is an event already experienced or lived through. Um, Deja senti is something already felt, perhaps triggered by music or voice. And deja visti, a place or so familiar that we sense that we've been there before. So it's one of those, that's something really important to understand, that kind of like what are you feeling when you're feeling this kind of deja vu? Because sometimes that deja vu can come in from a dream, and then some of those come in from past life dreams. So it's kind of like, where are you dreaming in this information? Like I said, a lot of times people say that empaths are, or clairsensitives have a lot of past lives, but it doesn't necessarily denote that you've had a lot of past lives or are still connected to them in a lot of different ways. Um, Empaths are people that have to go feel things deeper than everybody else. And I will tell you that they're the ones that pick up more, kind of, they're kind of like the maids. They pick up all that energy that no one else can take, take on or pick up. That's one of the reasons why I do my spray, because I'm very clear sensitive, and so I spray that a lot to kind of clear off that energy and uh, remove some of those connections, because it can be very overwhelming. Let's see, second sight. So sometimes people will say that they've had um, uh, past lives, if they have this ability to see future events. It's not always true. Sometimes it just depends on where you're at and what's going on with you and how you view the world. So it's not necessarily interconnected. Sometimes they can be, but it's not 100%. It's one of those, it can be a really interesting phenomenon when you have that um, going into past lives and learning about different cultures, learning about different people. And we're going to talk about that later on this week. Um, I will tell you that one of the things that for me, I get really flustered with a lot is when I watch something on the History Channel or something like that, that they got it wrong. I'll be like, no, you got it wrong. Um, or they will say, this is the way it was, or this is the only way it could be. And I'm like, I'll have that intuition of like, you got it wrong. You're completely wrong. Um, you're, um, or the way you've interpreted it is wrong, or the way you think it is wrong. Um, another way is people will feel older. So a lot of people will say this about small children, is that they have um, an old soul, or um, they come in with knowledge that they shouldn't have at that age. So it's really an interesting phenomena to have that go on, and it's totally normal. It's one of those, children don't have the same awakening spirits that we do. A lot of time as an adult, we're kind of told at some point to turn things off, or turn those abilities off, or we're getting that intuition from other people, like what you're doing freaks me out or scares me, and so that we'll end up turning those abilities off. um, but usually children will be able to connect with that energy much more in depth than we can, and as long as that connection is kept there, they have amazing abilities. Let's see. So Kim is saying online, I definitely feel like in my dreams I get snippets of past lives. A lot of people do. It does take some time, but you can learn how to dream in a past life. It's kind of a strange ability, but it's something that you can do. I can not only dream in my past lives, but I can dream in other people's past lives, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of just an interesting story, or an interesting history. So understanding that's really important to jot down those ideas and then try to confirm what you get. Jade is saying, my son told me a past life he drowned, and I was with him. A lot of times, what you'll happen is when you go into past lives, you could be the mom in this life for Jade and her son. So in this life, she's the mom, but in that past life, she could have been a sister, or they could have been married, or they could have had another connection. That could have been, she could have been the daughter and he was the dad, or whatever it is. So understand, like I said, we switch sexes, so it could be male, female at different times. But at the same time, we can also change how we are, and most people reincarnate in the same family. So they will keep coming back to the same family. They'll keep coming back to that same family. So your great grandfather in this life could be your son in this life, or your great grandmother could be, I'm saying, your mom. Whatever it is, they're always recycling, and most people recycle together or in pods, almost like dolphins. It's kind of like they stay in the family. Um, let's see, you will be drawn to different certain cultures, or periods of time, or environments. I do have clients that cannot stand certain um, climates. I had one not too long ago that was freaking out that her husband had to move up north, and the cold was triggering her and she couldn't figure out why. And it was from a past life. Once we got into that and able to kind of unpack all of that and work through it with past life regressions over a few weeks, it was able to come out everything that she needed to. So you will have kind of like a residual um, connection to places, and that's really important. But it's not just places, it's cultures. A lot of people that were Native American in past lives will be drawn to a Native American lifestyle in this lifetime, or periods of time. You'll see people that love the 1950s, and they love dressing up like that. They love being in that. They just love that, and that's probably where they came back from. We're going to talk about some other stuff. We're going to explain a little bit about fears. So, fears that don't make sense in this current life are usually fears that came in from a past life. So, if you are terrified of something, it's usually something that happened to you in a past life. I was talking to a client not too long ago, and people always laugh about everything else. I never wear anything too close to my neck. And if it is, it has to be like a necklace that won't move. It has to be heavy so it doesn't move around. In a lot of previous past lives, I was choked to death or hung. So anything too close around my neck will drive me crazy. So even the mask that everybody put on, because it's touching part of my neck, it drives me crazy. I had to go to a doctor's appointment last week and put it on, and I just kept like pulling it off, and I was like literally having palpitate. I was like, oh my gosh, this is panicking me over this. Finally, the nurse said, you don't have to put it on. You can just hold it there. And that made it better because then it wasn't touching anywhere on my neck. So much easier. But that's all coming in from a past life. I've worked on those past lives, but because there's so many of them, it comes in different ways. Um, let's see. Fears, any fears that you have that don't make sense. Claustrophobia, cockroaches, rats, snakes, alligators, sharks, being drowned, any of those, like falling off a cliff, being stuck in a cave, whatever it is, that probably happened in some past life for you. And when you get to that point in this life, it will trigger you. That's when you have to start working through it. You have to kind of start working through that trigger to kind of lessen that a little bit and make it a little bit easier. I do know people um, that are very, very claustrophobic, and they aren't able to work through that. So let me see. I've got a question on YouTube. Is asking, okay, having a question. What are techniques that I can use to remember past lives? We will be talking about that, Faith. I promise you, we're talking about that later on this week. So, talking about like how to connect with them, we're going to do that. Totally, totally have some fun. The last way to know that you probably had a lot of past lives is that you have this feeling that Earth isn't your real home. Like, this doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? I don't, all these Earth people, like, they're crazy. I don't know why they're doing this. This doesn't make sense. That is a past life. When you're doing it, and usually a lot of people, I know this kind of be maybe mind blowing, but not all your past lives were here on Earth. Some of your past lives were other Earths, other places, other events. And so almost any time frame that you can think of, there's a planet that's in that time frame now. There's a planet that is kind of all the Wild West all the time. They never got past it like we did. They never, evolved past that. They may have higher technology, but they still dress the way they did back then. There are ones um, that come in that are stuck in the 50s or different things, or the whole planet is full of lizards and everybody is a lizard and that sort of thing. So all of those come in. But if you have a feeling Earth isn't home, usually what that means to me is one of your most recent past lives was not here on Earth. Let's see. Megan is saying terrified of being on a plane, being in a plane crash in the ocean, surviving the plane crash, but getting eaten by a shark. That is probably a past life. I have met with many people who've had past lives where they were pilots or something like that in World War II or in other planets, and then they crash and then they get eaten or whatever else. So it's kind of like, not only do you have one dream, you know what I'm saying, one fear coming from that of just falling out of a plane, but then you have going in the ocean or being trapped in the plane for a while. And then you have on top of that being eaten by a shark. So it can be trigger, trigger, trigger. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about, we will, I know we're getting short on time right now. I try not to keep y'all too long because some of y'all are joining and y'all are on lunch. So we will be talking about some more of the fears and where they come in at. So if there's some fears that you've come in with, let me, you know what I'm saying, jot them down and we'll send them over. Some of the other ones is some like techniques of how to get in touch with your past lives or how to do that. Some great suggestions or ideas coming in later on this week. I thank you so much for joining me. I will be live tomorrow, noon Central Standard Time, and we will be talking about more about past lives this whole week. I will also be doing Thursday Night Live. Um, Thursday Night Live. Thursday night, 9 Central Standard Time. I will be answering one question from each person that joins in. And then, if you haven't already connected with me through my newsletter, on the side, whichever way it is for you, there is a way for you to connect to me. My newsletter is a great one. You will get a copy of May's newsletter. There's a lot of information about the planets going into retrograde. And so I thought retrograde, past lives are all really fun. I thank y'all for joining me, and I'll be seeing you soon. Have a great one.